Hey everybody, welcome to Big Sushi FM. This is episode 175. I had the chance to talk to Will and Dain from Cipher Prime. It's been a long show in the process of getting recorded. This is probably started way back from when we first launched the site. Cipher Prime, they made a game called Splice, which caught me off guard one holiday. And I loved it. I thought it was a really great game. I still recommend people go back and check it out and play it because it's a really fantastic puzzler. And from that initial experience, I decided that I wanted to, I wrote a little bit about it, and I wanted to start doing more like this stuff. And kind of what led us into doing the site as it is now. It's one of those first few games I played. I was like, I really want to talk to the people who made this. And here I am, a few years later, actually talking to the people who made it. And it's a really great talk. We talk a lot about kind of what it means to keep working in the industry for so long. They've been around for about 6 years, and the changes that have happened over time. I mean, we talk about Dig, back when Dig was around. Dig.com, which is the precursor to current-day Reddit in a lot of ways. We also spoke about kind of the things that a designer or a creator needs to do to help keep inspiration and be creative and have all those ideas, like ways to refill, like how you go to the well and refill the vessel that helps kind of fuel your energy and your passion to keep creating. And one of the things I think is most important, or what I liked most about this interview, was hearing them talk about how video games it's not their whole life. Like, they look at themselves as creators, and video games is just the medium in which they like to work and to create things with. And because of that, they go so far out to other areas in which they want to draw things in from. So I asked them, like, hey, what are some things that you think are done really exceptionally well, or help move you or inspire you? And they said it's not often video games. Oftentimes it's an animation, or it's a scene, or a dance with an installation type thing. And those are the things that help kind of fuel and inspire them for the next thing, and help them trying to increase their passion to make something better. And I think that's an important thing. I think it's an important thing for a lot of creators, is to understand that even though they work inside a medium, that medium is not their life, that is not just their culture. Their culture isn't all just in one spot, but rather, they are the sum of all of their experiences, and because of that, sometimes you need to go out for other things. I think Dain put it best where, you wouldn't trust an author who doesn't read, necessarily, doesn't read other books, but you also wouldn't trust an author who never leaves his house, because he just doesn't have the experiences to write something that is worthwhile or meaningful. Now, I'm sure there's a lot of ways to debate that topic, but I think that's an interesting sentiment, and I think there's some truth that rings through that. But this is the part of the show where we say, hey, we need your support. There are so many awesome ways to help support the site, and I'm going to name a few of them for you to do. First up, the easiest one is just to like us and follow us on Facebook and Twitter. Just communicate to us through there. Say, hey, you hear a show that you like, or there's a certain thing that you heard that you thought was cool, or you just want to say hello, hey, what's going on, see what we're up to. We're always checking it out, and we would love to hear from you. Another super awesome and convenient thing to do would be to subscribe to us on either iTunes, SoundCloud, Stitcher. Use your favorite podcast app on your phone. Subscribing to us helps us get a good idea of how many people are actually listening, and it makes us feel good. And iTunes uses things for more people who listen to you, the higher you rank, and then more people listen to you. So that stuff helps us grow. Another great thing to do, since the holidays are coming around, is we have an Amazon affiliate link on our website. If you click that link, it takes you to Amazon, and then if you're super savvy, you can bookmark that as your Amazon bookmark, and then every time you purchase off of Amazon, anything you purchase, we get some of that money comes to us somehow through black magic of financial instruments and things. And it's awesome. It's going to be a big help with the holidays coming around. I'm sure you do a lot of stuff on Amazon. I do. And you can help fund the show directly that way. And if you want to go the furthest, top tier awesome person in the universe, you can go to our Patreon account, and then you can donate directly to us, and we have some really awesome goodies planned for backers that way. Like maybe some extra behind-the-scenes stuff, maybe some bonus content, maybe some more physical merch. We have a lot of things kind of in the works, and Landon and I are trying to figure out exactly what we want to do and then how we're going to go about handing it all out. But this has been a long intro, so let's get into the show. So finally, here's episode 175 with Will and Dain from Cipher Prime. Enjoy.
That it has a video, so now I can see myself, adjust my shirt. Here, I look good.
And so it's Dain and Will, that's all? Is there anyone else joining us today?
No, it's just us, but you'll hear other people in the background because we're at the Forge, but
right.
You know.
The Forge, what's the Forge?
The Philadelphia Game Forge. It's our co-working space that we run. So it's Philadelphia's first game co-working space, and it's its largest right now. So we have about 25 people at max capacity, and they come in, and then we do events here. We do Dev Night, which I think you know about.
Yeah, how long has Dev Night been running?
A couple years now?
About 3 years now, I think.
Yeah, a while. A very long time. We just updated the website, too. I should know this information off the top of my head, but I don't.
Well, I've been really trying to get you guys on the show for a really long time, because back when we first started, one of the first games that really kind of made me just start this quest of wanting to talk to people who make games and find out kind of the why and the how and to dig deep into like the creation process and what goes into these things was Splice. It kind of caught me off guard. It was just like it was on sale, I think, for a holiday Steam sale, and I downloaded it in like literally for the weekend. That's all I did was play Splice, and very few puzzle games have been able to really like get their hooks into me in such a way, and you guys were able to. And so I think to kind of help set the whole picture for what you guys do, because Cipher Prime, you guys have been around for a while. You guys have quite a catalog of games behind you now, and Splice is not the first, but it's not even the last, really, because you guys are working all the time. So if you could, just for people who are not familiar with Cipher Prime, like how did you guys start, and what is a Cipher Prime game?
So I think we've been around for like 6 years.
Yeah, we're getting close to 6 years now.
Yeah, our very first game was a game called Auditorium, which is this puzzle game where you bend beams of light to conduct an orchestra. And now we have 6 games, and Auditorium was kind of like, we were starting a web company at the time, and Dain and I kind of realized that we each had separate portfolios, but we didn't have a portfolio together, and we wanted to have something we could send out to, prospective employers and be like, yo, check it out, this is the kind of work we can do together, so why don't you be awesome and let us make work for you? And that really never happened, but Auditorium was kind of this combined project for us as a portfolio piece, and it was really meant to get clients, which just never came to fruition. We never really got the clients.
Luckily, the game actually ended up taking off pretty well. We got featured in a couple of really high-traffic sites, like Jay's Games picked us up right around Thanksgiving. So on Thanksgiving, we're like on our phones in respective apartments because we got first front page of Dig, and our site was down, and we had all this crazy traffic.
Remember Dig, guys?
Back when Dig was a thing.
We got dug hard, and it was Thanksgiving, and it broke our website. Day and I are like screaming at each other on the telephone, deciding whether he's like at his mom's house, and like I'm at my friends, and we're like, do we fix this or not? And
the really cool thing about it was because the site was down, everybody on Dig was like, oh my god, this must be the best thing ever.
I think the fact that the website was down actually made it cooler than it was.
So as soon as we fixed the site, we put it up and we threw on a PayPal donation thing, and the donations from that push is what actually funded the early stages of the company. We were able to get an office off of that, and we're like, man, the hell with having clients. Let's just make games, because games are so much more fun than making websites.
Yeah, so we're from Philly, and so we've been working here, and we had our office was 150 square feet. It was basically like the bathroom that for the office was actually 1/3 the size of the office. And it was like one of those bathrooms where you sit on the toilet and your knees are hitting the sink, But
it used to be a candy store, apparently.
Yeah, it was a candy store, apparently, at one time. It was really weird because we had like a front face, so people would like see us as we're working and like walk by and like wave at us and stuff.
It's weird to be like programming at 10 o'clock at night and have people just like walk in off the street like, hey, what's going on here? Like, it's really weird.
Yeah, that's actually, we like met I think one of our first employee, our first employee we met in the middle of the street outside of our shop at 4 a.m.
He was just yelling at us, hey, what do you do?
Like, what the hell do you guys do that you're up right now?
We're making video games. And then he says, do you want pretzels? And I was like, okay. And then we hired him, like,
he brought
Wait.
He brought us pretzels, so we had to hire him. It was just like, that was kismet.
Wait a second. Does he know how to program? Is he an artist? Like, how does he just? Is he just like the pretzel guy?
He was a musician, and he had been programming for a while, and he'd been doing some really cool processing stuff with audio. Mm-hmm. And his brother actually, he doesn't work for us anymore. He moved on to do web dev with his brother. but his brother started a company called Punk Ave, which right now is like Philadelphia's like leading web company. So actually, like the whole family has like mega development chops. You know
That's
what I mean?
awesome. Well, before we hop off of it too, Auditorium, like, I feel like it also kind of came out at the right time, right? I mean, you mentioned Dig, and you're also 6 years old. Like, I think, like, I feel like people forget a lot of times that, like, oh man, this indie thing's so new. It's like, no. Like, this shit's been going on forever.
Oh yeah, for a really long time.
Yeah.
Somebody likes to. One of our buddies, Matt, who like runs the IGDA, likes to introduce us as like indie before indie existed. Which, I don't know what I think about that personally. That phrase,
it did actually work out kind of that way because we ended up we got quartered a bit for Auditorium, and so we ended up heading out to GDC that year for the first time. We had no idea what GDC was.
We didn't know what GDC was. We had
indie
never
games
heard of,
existed.
what is that thing called?
IGF.
Yeah, we didn't know what that was.
But what ended up happening was Auditorium was so popular, we went out there, and everyone assumed that we had been nominated for an IGF, and we never submitted.
So many people came up to us and said, congratulations on our IGF win. We're like, what the fuck is an IGF?
Does it get me something? Do I get like a free dinner with that? Like, what happens?
We had no idea what was going on. We ended up going to a talk, and then Auditorium was like in somebody's talk as like, a really good example of the freemium model. And then we kind of like looked at each other and we were like, what the fuck is freemium?
So wait, this is so like. I mean, I just want to like really comment on this fact. Like, so here you are at GDC, which is like the mecca, right? This is where everyone goes. Like, and I mean, now you guys know what GDC is, but for those who still don't know, it's like
somebody
this huge
told
deal.
us to go, and we were like, they were like, you really should go. And we're like, I don't know, it's a lot of money. Like, why should we do this? It's kind of stupid.
It's expensive, yeah. Like, I think how much is a ticket? It's like $1,000 for like the full access.
You want to get the full access,
and we had to fly out there, like,
Although the flight out there,
we got like discount tickets or something. I don't remember how it happened, but I think like we got some sort of discount tickets through like IGDA or something like that, and they ended up being like a little cheaper, but they were still like a couple $100 if I remember.
Yeah. So how was that? How was that experience? Like, so you're there, all of a sudden your game's on the stage. Like, you're like, wait, that's art. We did that, and people are up here like talking about it, and they're acting as if we know what the fuck we're doing.
Yeah, and we had no idea. We're like, how the fuck do you even make a game?
What's great is
like,
that 6 years later, people still think we know what we're doing. And
I mean, Auditorium was supposed to be a shmup to just show you like how badly we missed our target for the game we were trying to make. Like, there isn't even a ship in the fucking game. We never even got the stars.
Yeah,
like,
we're trying to make a shmup, and so I decided to start writing the particle engine to make the explosions, because obviously when you have a shmup, things explode, and we never got past the particle system.
Yeah, we just like sat around all day long, played TF2, and then made things blow up.
So, but how did that happen though? Like, so why was it then like, okay, no, this isn't a shmup. This is actually like this kind of puzzle game where you're directing the flow of these particles to make sure they hit all these areas, and then music comes in. Because I think,
It's kind of like so Dain had, I guess, when Dain and I kind of met each other, we didn't really know each other, and I'd gone up for like one of our early meetings. Because basically what happened, Dain and I met each other at a party at my house, and we showed each other our portfolios, and then we said, like, someday we should do a project. And a couple months later, I just quit my job and called him up, and I was like, hey, man, I've got time to do a project now. And he's like, well, I just started this company, Cipher Prime, if you want to join on. And I was like, okay, sure. I met this guy
Sounds
once.
good.
I met this guy once. We'd never made anything together, and I was just like, sure, let's start a company. One of our first meetings, I guess, was up at where he was staying in New Jersey. I went up there, and he like had just a lot of this music stuff he had done when he was a kid. And, nothing came of that. And we were working on Auditorium a couple months later. And I guess we kind of just, it was taking too long. Like, it was taking really fucking long to make this game. And we had this idea of we were just filling up containers. And I was like, dude, we should just put your music on that. And, I think he went like a little farther than I was expecting. And, it just kind of like fell into place. But it was just an off-the-cuff idea. And, now it's like the foundation of our company.
We've always, I think, in our personal careers, like what we've done for our own portfolios and our own freelancing, like we've always been sort of, whatever kind of people. So when we started, making this puppet, we're like, okay, this would be cool. And then we had the particles, and that was a lot of fun. And we were sort of like, it's really fun to just play with the particles. Yeah, whatever. Let's just do that. Go with it.
Yeah,
I kind of think
dumb stuff like that happens to us a lot. If you've seen you saw our new website, so it has like the Set Your Mind on Fire with like the flames in the background all over the planet. That was like a picture that I made for a game jam that Dan and I did 2 weeks ago on the train, and it's actually like, it's the background of the game that we made called 16 Seconds, and instead of making the game and finishing it, we use it as our website.
So it's just kind of like these ideas are happening everywhere, and you're just kind of grabbing them and bolting them to the first thing you see. Like, okay, this
kind of,
yeah.
We're like solving problems with shit that we already made. So we kind of like spend a lot of time just making really weird, random stuff, and then every once in a while, this Lego piece that we made like 6 years ago seems to just fit in the right place.
It's one of those things where like my mom taught me how to cook when I was growing up, but it wasn't very much like, oh, here's this recipe, and you follow the recipe,
right.
and we'll do this. It was very much open up the cabinets and see what you have, and if it looks like it's going to go good in the pot, toss it in. You know?
Right? Yeah. My mom was perfect at that too. She was she was the queen of leftover cooking, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So just like new dishes out of just these bits and pieces that she had from the week of just like, oh, they made meatloaf on Monday. That's going to turn into meatballs on Wednesday.
Yeah.
I'm jealous you guys had moms that cooked for you. It's just not cool.
But so then you sort of see that that philosophy where it comes out that you don't force a thing to be something that it's not. So if you're looking at it and like, oh, this would work really well in this completely different context, we should probably do that.
Right. I think that's a really important lesson. I think a lot of people are starting to discover, and I think that's part of what I like about your games, about Cipher Prime games. Because I guess the other question I asked was, what is a Cipher Prime game? And you guys were sort of hitting at it. It's this thing where it's kind of like these ideas that you have, or these small working like doohickeys or gizmos that you're kind of like just smashing together, and like, oh, this fits with this and this fits with that. And then also, I think the other key component that you've also alluded to is the music. Yeah. There is a really intense musicality to all of your games.
Yeah, so I'm a designer and Dain's a musician, and kind of like what you're seeing in our games is kind of the mix between those two, and we really spent a lot of time just trying to get them to mesh. So a lot of times we'll make a game, Dain will make music first, and then I will use the music as inspiration to do visual design, or vice versa. So we spent a lot of time doing that and kind of collaborating in this music visual scape. At the end of the day, we like to say that we make beautiful games. Like, that's what they all have in common, is we like to think that both, visually and orally, that they're beautiful. That's kind of like, that's our first priority. And, some people actually criticize us for that. They say our games aren't that deep, blah, 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 blah. So for us, like, the craft of really making it nice and beautiful and special, I guess, comes first. Mm-hmm. And so that's kind of like, I think, the number one thing is that audio and visual design. Like, that's kind of what makes a Cipher Prime game. And then as far as like genres and stuff, we try to do a different genre every game now. We started off with puzzle games, but even the puzzle games we've made, I think we've made really different puzzle games that are not, we try to make a new genre of game. We don't try to make like a platformer and make things bounce on a platformer. We like to, right. I don't know, we start with gravity and start throwing things around the world and like flying ships through that, or I don't know, just different things basically.
I think because we do sort of approach things from this aesthetic standpoint, eyes and ears, that one of the things that makes us strong at is, I think, creating moods, creating emotions.
Yeah, and mood and experience is important.
So for instance, Splice, you had mentioned earlier, what we were after there was not creating a plot or a character, but just creating a feeling like you are a scientist in a lab working by yourself late at night trying to figure something out. And so everything that is in the game comes back to trying to create that mood. The music is very subdued, Philip Glass kind of soundtrack. The palettes are very deliberately chosen to sort of move you through the game. And the way the nodes are suspended in a fluid and all the movements, it's supposed to give you that I'm looking into a microscope. I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm going to figure it out. And so that feeling is what we're after, right. More than a specific, this is the plot, and I'm going to hit you over the head with it until you get it.
I think that is a very accurate way to describe your games. But I want to kind of go back to what you were saying about how, Will, that you mentioned that some people don't think necessarily that the games are deep enough, or if that's something that's even really like a necessary qualifier. Because the one thing I will say about what I believe that your games are is that oftentimes they're very well realized. Right, I think that's one trait, and I think that's an often overlooked trait for a lot of games, is that there are a lot of games that have a lot of mechanics and there's a lot of cool things happening in there, but they're not well realized. They don't feel as unified as a whole thing. And I think maybe this is where the musicality comes in from Dain, where you can't help but have something be like unified and tethered together in a lot of meaningful ways. Because a lot of times in most games, there are mechanics that are stitched together and they're working together to make a whole thing, and the game is on some of its parts, but you can definitely see where the seams start to tear a little bit. I think that's very difficult to do in your games.
Yeah, I mean, for us, that's a thing that before we did this, I spent all my time doing UI/UX design and building systems for that sort of stuff. So for me, it's really important that you don't see seams, that everything feels seamless. We don't make we're doing video production. We don't like to do hard cuts. We want to make one thing transform into another thing, and we kind of bring that same idea over to our games as far as visually and the gameplay as well. So when I'm crafting levels, I'm trying to craft them in a way that cool, you're playing with new stuff, but it doesn't feel like you went to a cutscene and you came back to the game and blah 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 blah. It should feel like one seamless movement, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. And even at game lengths, we don't have games that are 70 hours long. I mean, the original Auditorium is damn long, but at this point now we're trying to keep it to a couple hours so that if you wanted to, hypothetically, you could play one of our games in a sitting.
I think it's very important for games to not overstay their welcome. I think that a lot of games feel like they need to be more than they are. And if you look at something like a movie, it's $150 million and thousands of people's worth of effort, but it's over in 150 minutes, and then it's done, and that's it. And everyone's satisfied with that. But for some reason, when it comes to a game, we feel like we need to push on 12, 20, 40, 50, 60 hours. And I'm 30. I don't have time to play that kind of game anymore.
Yeah, we don't want to make that kind of game. So, we also don't we don't even typically call them games we do now, because it's that's how you have to market it. But, in our heads, we think of these things as experiences and not games. We're okay, well, how do we get this experience across?
Right. I think that's super fair. And I had something lined up, and then I just totally dropped it. Oh no! So to go back to what you're talking about, how games padding themselves out, right? Because I think you're absolutely correct that there are a lot of games now, and there is this expectation where games need to be longer and they need to be so many hours per so many dollars. There's this weird dollar to hour ratio that we have to analyze these things at. I think the movie example is great. I think it's a great counter example. And
it's actually really bizarre.
It is.
Yeah, I don't get it at all, man. I want a game that's good, and I want one mechanic that's just fucking awesome. You give me, I don't know, Minecraft or something, it's one mechanic that's really awesome. That's all you really need. That's all you really want. I don't understand the idea of having 40 guns that all suck. You only need one crossbow that's just mega awesome.
And then were you going to say something?
It's bizarre. It's bizarre to me doing that dollar to time ratio, because what will happen is we'll have a game like Pulse or Splice, all right? And there is this 40 minutes of music in Splice and an hour of music in Pulse. And people will look at the game and say, oh, well, I'm going to wait till it's 99 cents because it's not really worth spending the $4 on the game or whatever. Meanwhile, the album for the game that has the music is an album price. It's going to be $10, and people have
you can't
no
even set the
problem.
price lower on iTunes. That's the only price we can set. So now our music costs more than our game,
Which
it's
contains
a weird
music,
thing.
which is very, very strange.
But people will buy the music. They never fucking complain. They buy the game, and they're like, I don't know, man. I don't know if it was long enough. And Splice is the one that really kills me when people say the game's not long enough, because that game is super mega long.
I know, Jesus Christ.
It's so long. We tell you beat the game halfway through just so that you feel accomplishment.
Yeah,
and then you get back to the main screen and you can flip the logo around, and then there's another game there, and those those levels are insanely hard. Each one of those can take up to an hour and a half to beat, and there's 77 of them. Like,
Yeah, I think I got maybe through 20 of the reverse side just before I was like, all right, this is just fucking too hard. Like I'm sitting here like racking my brain, just like
don't feel bad. We have analytics in there, and less than 20 people in the world have solved that puzzle. And the funny thing about it is that we still have a bunch of reviews that say the game is too short. I want to know these reviewers that are beating this game, because 4 of those people are us. So you go out there and go ahead and tell me the game's short when you haven't beaten it. That's awesome. You're definitely good at your job.
Yeah, well, and the one thing I wanted to ask though about this concept where you guys you don't want to have that fat, you don't want to have that extra padding in there. What are the methods that you do? Because I'm sure you guys run into that problem, right? Just like everyone has that problem when you're designing things, that your scope just gets wider and you have all these ideas. How do you go about paring it down to what it needs to be? I mean, you guys made a really great allusion to basically you can't force the game to be something that it's not, but what is the call and response? How do you guys go about doing that?
It depends. I mean, it's different for every game. I yell a lot.
There was a lot of yelling. There's also a lot of user testing. Splice again, well, to talk about just the UI alone in Splice, what we ended up doing was we said, well, what is every piece of data the player could possibly want to know about what's going on? And then we designed it. So we'll design that. We put it in the game. We got people in. And then we found out what are they not paying attention to, and we cut it away. And then we tried it again. What are they not paying attention to? So the final UI in Splice is super, super, super minimal because we put everything in and then cut away until it was communicating exactly what it needed to communicate and nothing else. And I think we take the same approach to the rest of the gameplay, where we might want to add, cool new feature X, but if it's not a part of the core experience, if it doesn't make sense, then we cut it. So we end up throwing away probably 90% of everything we make.
The level process. So for the epilogue, right, we had this debate about the game, especially because those levels are so hard, and we made them for us. So Andre and I did the level design for Splice, and we had thousands of levels, like a retarded number of levels. And what we did was we had 5 of us in this room, and we had a bunch of shot glasses, and we all played the game. And we had a timer. It was I think the timer was 5 minutes. So whoever could beat a level in 5, whoever beat the level within the 5 limits didn't have to take a shot. And then if somebody couldn't beat it within the 5 minutes, the level just got cut. So that was our culling process. We did that. I think it took 4 hours. We had a really good time. We were blasted by the time we were done. And the cool thing about it was, we went from easiest to hardest. So we're, getting a little bit more drunk as we're playing these levels, and they're getting harder. So, that 5-minute mark made it so, we're cutting more and more out. But what it did was it really took away those super, super, super crazy, crazy hard levels, and kind of we threw out 500 levels or something in that couple of hours, and then we were able to look at the numbers for, what the time was that we completed the levels in to get a really good idea for, this is probably the order we should put them in. And then once we had that set up, we then went ahead and did the whole user testing and had a lot of people play them and made sure that, this thing that the 5 of us came up with works and does what it's supposed to do.
We actually, now that I think about it, do a fair amount of drunk testing.
Yeah, drunk testing is the best.
Not only for us, but so our third game, Pulse, is a rhythm game on iPad, tap dots and time with the music. Super simple. It was simple enough that we decided, as with the rest of the Cipher Prime games, that it doesn't need a tutorial. And the way we made sure that the first level would teach you everything it would need to was we took it to a bar in San Francisco, and we had people drink, and we had them play the first level and see if they could pick it up. And by the end of the night, we had figured out exactly what we needed to do. And Pulse ended up becoming, the number 1 music game on iPad for 4 or 5 years. So I think there's a lot to be said for drunk testing. I think it's an overlooked.
Putting yourself in the mind of an idiot and then trying to figure out your game, especially when it's a hard game like ours, it's a pretty good way of figuring out if it works or not.
Do you also feel like you get better feedback, more honest feedback, because the inhibitions are lowered, right?
Oh yeah, and the people who are playing
sometimes a little too honest.
Yeah, you're also getting people to play your games who would never play them in the first place. They're fucking hate beautiful ambient games. I just want to blow shit up. And we're like, play this puzzle game in the bar while you're trying to hang out with your friends. And they're like, fuck you. So, I think it's kind of good and bad. As long as you're, I think Psyche can deal with it, it's a good idea.
And so you guys are working currently right now on bringing Auditorium, like doing a remaster. Is that correct?
We are. It's a big, we are.
A sequel more than
a remaster.
Yeah.
It's a little of both. I mean, in a way, there's a lot of footage. We just we're saying we just launched our new website, and so there's a lot of.
There we go.
They're yelling in the background over here.
It's all right. We'll just shame them on the internet.
Oh yeah, so there's a whole bunch of footage there up there now, so you can kind of see like what the new version of the game looks like as far as visual design and everything. So we've actually spent a lot of time kind of re-envisioning the game because one of the things, the original game was a web game, and it's kind of like it's weird being around for 6 years and making video games because we're at a point now where we're actually seeing trends go up and down and like,
Oh yeah, like what?
I mean, for instance, Dig does that. The Dig doesn't exactly like
Reddit,
now
right?
It's Reddit.
Yeah.
Reddit.
See, but now it's Reddit, right? But we're seeing these trends and we're seeing things go up and down. Like we look at our iPad sales.
Real quick, I just want to interrupt. I just love that we're talking about Dig because I remember like Dig, and Dig was the shit. I watched Dig Nation. It would help me yo, dude, podcasting. We should totally do a podcast.
Yeah, dude, Dig was amazing. But now it's not even a thing. You don't even think about Dig.
Right. No,
so,
it's still a site. Have you gone to Dig recently?
I haven't thought about Dig in probably 3 years.
The site's still up. Yeah, it's still up. It's terrifying.
I'm digging right. Nope, I went to the wrong dig.
No.
Wow, it looks so different.
This is like a newspaper now.
It's a news site now. Jesus.
I give Reddit another year.
Yeah, Jesus. So these trends change, and that's I think that's an example of something like that. But the web game, I don't think is as lucrative as Auditorium. People played Auditorium in their office while they were working, and now people play games on their phone. And I think the market's completely changed. Flash is really hard to push on people now. So the new game we're actually trying to plan for a PS4 launch. So not only are we redoing the game, but we're re-envisioning it with a new control schema, which is kind of like a new, different thing in itself, right?
Right.
And there were a lot of things that we wanted to do in the original Auditorium that we were just completely hamstrung by the technology. So, for instance, the original Auditorium, the stream, it's only 100 particles that we're pushing, And now, one of the things that I sort of joke with people about is that if you look at modern AAA gaming, you look at Crysis or one of those, engines, when you flesh it out for the game, you're able to push so much graphics, so many polygons, and what you'll see is they put all the effort into environments. You put a lot into characters, especially the main character. You put a lot into the items, and a little bit into particles. But what we ended up doing with Duet right now is we're spending the entire Crysis graphics pipeline budget on just particles.
It's fucking wonderful. We're able to so push. Good. There are so many particles now.
we're pushing. So whereas in the first Auditorium we could only push 100, now we're pushing tens of thousands of particles on the screen, and it's just very pretty.
Yeah. We've done the user. We've been doing user testing, and we actually. Duet's made in a bunch of festivals now.
It's in Gamer Camp.
The next one coming up is Gamer Camp, and people don't even play the game anymore. They just stare at the damn thing.
Do you guys see that? Is fine. Yeah, well, I mean, because there's two huge things I really want to talk about. So the first one is talking about when you guys first started to kind of where things are now. So you mentioned web games, right? Web games kind of don't even exist. They were super lucrative 6 years ago. There's a lot of people making a lot of money off of ad games or advert gaming and things like that through Flash.
We got an award from Mochi.
Yeah, we have a Webby award,
Right. And now, you can't even get away with that. There's just that whole market has totally dropped out, and it's all moved over to phones. And the weird thing about phones is that it's not a desktop, right? So a lot of those games don't necessarily translate well. You see, maybe Candy Crush plays great on a subway, right? When you're riding on a train, but there's certain games that require some sort of precision. I mean, Auditorium to some extent, right? Because if you're on a bumpy train, and you guys do have it on iPhone.
Auditorium is finicky, man. I mean, the fact of the matter is, the iPhone first came out, and it was like Squatch and Stretch was like that big action they wanted people to do, and they realized that like people never do that, and it's a big pain in the ass, and it only works like diagonally. And so, the the auditorium that got converted by EA like has that in there, and people just don't like playing that because it's a big pain in the ass.
Right.
And, I don't know. I think it's still really hard. Like, you need to be making a very specific kind of game now, which kind of sucks because I think web games are still like the coolest shit. Like, it's so awesome. I was playing something the other day. I was like, hey, you remember when we played web games, Dain? And so we did a game jam on the train, and we just spent a lot of the time before that. Like, our inspiration was we did nothing but play web games. And we found some really, really cool web games that would never, ever be able to work on phones, ever. And it sucks like because there's no place for those games anymore. There's a lot of games, like even just Auditorium. Like, it works on the phone. It really doesn't. Like, maybe on the new phone with the newer real estate. But, any of our games...
so fucking big. It's too big.
It's huge. It's like a flying saucer.
Yeah.
It's approaching, what, phablet size?
It's the size of the Vita. It's the same screen size as the Vita, right?
Yeah. Yeah, if you look at most of our games, they don't translate very well. Like, even Pulse. Pulse is a mobile-only game, and it only works on tablets because the screen real estate is just too small for two of your fingers. Like, two of your fingers just can't do the multi-touch because the size of your fingers, they just take up a certain amount of real estate. When you put two of your fingers together, that's like an inch. Right. And they're less than an inch apart when you're doing the multi-touch stuff. So, like, even that game doesn't work. And it's specifically made for... that for that environment, multi-touch.
Do you feel though like a lot of like the success? Obviously, about a good portion of it is due to this like web game stuff. But have you guys been able to like how's the transition been from going from like this web game scenario right into doing like now you're working on console games? Like obviously, I don't think you guys probably even envisioned that as a thing that was going to be happening 5 years ago.
Never, we never even thought about it. We just wanted to make websites.
Right, you guys fucked that up, so now you're making games.
Yeah, we're fucking idiots, we are. Honestly, the transition's been really, really hard, and we've seen a lot of things like our company's gone up to 5 people, and now it's back to Dain and I again, because, we just, we don't know how to make it sustainable. We keep trying new things every year, and things keep changing a lot, and I think that it's really super hard to stay competitive, and the fact of the matter is, web games are cool because, they're on your website when they play your game, and they can join your mailing list, and they can watch your ad or, give you money through PayPal. But selling games anywhere but the web sucks because it's just they're not your customer anymore. You can't, there's no way for us to contact the hundreds of thousands of people who've played our games on an Apple device. It really sucks that all these people play Pulse and our new games come out, and we can't tell them that our new game is out. If we do, we have to, update Pulse, which means we have to,
we have to go through cert again.
We have to go through cert again. We got to download a new SDK. We have to make sure that all of the old code works again. Oh, damn, the iPhone's changed. Now we have to do, update graphics, or people will yell at us, and it's this huge ordeal. And it's are you fucking kidding me? All I want to do is send you an email. And it's the exact same thing with Steam. I don't understand. Why can't I just contact my customers and be like, yo, guys, new game's out. You said you wanted to hear about it. But I feel like it's really hard now. We had Auditorium up. We had a mailing list. We had 22,000 people join our mailing list. Since then, we have 24,000 people on our mailing list now. So Auditorium still got more people to our mailing list that we can contact than any game we've ever made. And I think it's just because it was a web game and it was easy to get to. And we could be like, hey, if you guys like it, we'll tell you when more stuff comes out.
Do you think that any of that stuff is coming back at all slightly with streaming as a platform?
Maybe. I don't think so.
It's kind of weird, right? Because we went from web games on the web to being the big major thing that most people consume to now people watching other people play proper console or PC games, right? And
yeah,
it's kind of an interesting split of I guess how things have kind of transitioned, at least for how things are handled on the web, and that type of stuff. Obviously consoles haven't really changed a whole lot, nor really has PC gaming, but I think the streaming stuff has really added a whole nother, I guess, enigma for us to look at and wonder what we can do with this thing. Can we make this lucrative for us?
Yeah, it's super strange. I feel we just look at each other all the time now and we're should we continue to do this? Because this is super not lucrative, really scary, and now there's like 30,000 people making games, and it's over competitive, and there's just too many ways to do things now, and almost all of them revolve around losing a lot of money.
And every platform holder, what you end up looking at is, it's great because it has never been easier to make a game. It has never been easier to make a game and make it available for sale. And it sucks because it has never been easier to make a game. So what ends up happening is that the signal to noise ratio is just off the charts. We have people that like Splice and don't know we have 5 other games. And that's largely, part of that's our fault for not being like the best marketers in the world. And part of it is the fact that if you are on Steam and you purchase Splice and you liked it, Steam won't tell you, hey, other games by Cipher Prime in a way that's really, readily available to you. Mm-hmm. Apple does it to some extent, but that market is even more saturated with so many other games, and the price point on that platform has come down so far over the years that it makes it really difficult. When the iPad first came out, we put out Pulse. We had a fairly large spike, and each release on iPad since then has been about a third of the previous spike, despite still getting, editor's choice and feature spot and app of the day and all of that. And I think that's largely just a factor of how much content is available.
I think it's like that, and it's also like that race to the bottom mentality, right? Where it's just
God, yeah.
Where it's like first it was 99 cents, right, and now it's free.
Yeah, I don't know. I've been trying to find some cool games to play recently on every platform, and I can't find good games. It's unbelievable to me that there's like 50,000 games in the world, and I can't find one that's good. Like,
yeah, the iOS is particularly tough, especially if you're looking, because the thing is, like, even I want to pay. Like, I have no problem paying money, but the problem is when everything's 99 cents, you have no one's signaling that they think that their product's worth more than that, right?
Yeah, it's really strange.
So
and Apple doesn't like refeaturing people, right? So there's some of these games that have been made that are just like amazing experiences, but they don't want to like feature them every month because they want to make their store seem like new and not stale. But some of the games are just fucking brilliant and should be up there all the time. Like if you're a new person going on iOS, like for the very first time, you just got an iPhone and you open up the App Store right now and go to download games. I'm sorry, but most of the games you're going to get are not good. Like the ones that are featured right now are just like what's okay right now. And the fact of the matter is really like 10 games come out a year that just blow your mind.
Right.
And, Apple only wants to feature them for the first like month or two while they're hot, and then they drop them unless they're like Angry Birds or something.
Right.
Well, that's why there's a new Angry Birds every 3 months. So.
Yeah, and that's exactly why there is a new Angry Bird all the time. It's like they're trying to get around that whole thing as well. Why they can't be like Nintendo and just be like, yo, here's our classic collection. I have no idea.
Yeah, here's the room. Play this. Fucking just play the room.
Yeah, like just play this game and enjoy your life.
Right. And then the other thing that you're starting to talk about a little bit is like how much. So not only how much has like the platforms changed, but also you're talking about like the trends of games. So you guys have kind of always been doing, and they're not all puzzle games, but you guys that's the beginning games were sort of like puzzle games. So you guys have always had things that are very tied closely to music and like that type of musical expression. And right now we're seeing. And we have been for a while now. We've seen a lot more games come into the scene that are much more musically inclined or musically focused, right? So you have like Panoramical, you have Sound Self, you have all these other games that are sort of getting into this space that you guys have kind of been left to your own devices, right, for kind of like a long time. And so how is that kind of like Proteus is another good one, right, where you just kind of wander around and you have just music playing and there's reactive music. So how do you guys look at that stuff, and what's your take on that, or how do you guys like, does that inspire you more?
I think it's great.
I think it's cool. I wish they were better.
Oh.
And I'm just saying that because I like to play games too, and it'd be cool if they were better. Like Proteus is okay, I guess. I played it. I definitely played it.
What are some ones that you think that do a really good job? Like, what are some ones that you're just like, fuck, that was good. Like, Dain, we need to do something like that.
Oh man, most of the things that I say like that about are not games.
Oh yeah.
Almost all that stuff that I like look at and I'm like, oh, this is fucking amazing. It's not a game. It's like an animation that I see that's like 3 seconds long, or
There was a really cool
picture, or
it was a dancer with projections going on in the background. She was dancing with the projections, beautiful, and that I think fits our aesthetic sense very well.
yeah. I mean, honestly, like I really don't think there's anybody doing it well except for that game company.
Mm.
So like I can't even really point at games as like a good example.
Yeah, I was really happy to take the 2 hours or whatever it was to sit down with a 6-pack and a friend and go through Journey, because that was great.
Trauma's amazing. I don't know if you've played Trauma,
Trauma's
but
a
that's
beautiful
like
experience.
that's a game right there. Like if you want to talk about one that's doing it really well, like Trauma is fucking epic. But there's really not a lot of games that are doing that. I mean,
Fract, I think, on the audio side, is really good. There's a lot of really cool things happening there. I think that the problem a lot of composers end up running into when they're trying to do these experiences, though, is that they forget that the people that are going to play it aren't musicians.
Mm.
And so things that, and even here, like Will and I get into arguments all the time because there's stuff that's just super, super obvious to me, and he keeps reminding me, like, dude, that's not obvious. I don't hear what you're hearing. And I think that process is extremely important to making sure that that when you change something musically, when you're trying to do something that is reactive, that when the player does something, music happens. There's really weird psychological things that you got to be aware of, and you have to test the crap out of it, and you have to. It's I think not unintuitive to a musician that, for instance, if you tap something and you want to be in time with the music, but also feel like you did it, well, those are two goals that don't work, because if it doesn't happen the second you do it, then it doesn't feel like you did it. But if it happens the second you do it, then it doesn't feel like it's on rhythm. And I think a lot of musicians will opt to make it on rhythm when they really should be making it happen immediately, because the person that makes it off rhythm isn't going to hear that it's off rhythm. So it's very sort of counterintuitive what you have to do with music to make it feel reactive and engaging.
yeah, I mean, visual design. There's like there's a lot of games I see that have like amazing visual design. I'm thinking right now off the top of my head. Do you know Deep Under the Sea by Colin Northway? That new game?
Yeah.
Under the Sky, Deep Under the Sky. Sorry.
Yeah.
That game, like, it looks absolutely gorgeous, and it plays pretty. It plays pretty well. I think it plays pretty good as well. I guess it's at the end of the day, it's not my style of game, but like I look at it and I do get inspired because the visual design is amazing and it's unique. But a lot of the things I see, and I guess I feel like all the games that I'm looking at they're all the same thing. It's just like. People are not only are they stealing, just genres from each other. They're like, oh, let's just make another platformer. It's going to be a roguelike. It's cool. They also steal the same goddamn
Everything
art
is a
style.
roguelike now. Have you noticed that? Like every single thing is like, oh, here's the new Candy Crush roguelike. It's like, that's not what that means.
You should definitely play the new Intake roguelike. It's really good.
I thought Intake was a roguelike. I'm so confused.
I mean, technically, Intake is procedurally generated, and you fail fast, fail hard, and there's permadeath. So as far as I can tell, it is actually a roguelike.
Right. I mean, I think the biggest thing that I've noticed, and I don't know if I'm particularly fond of it because I like it on some regards, but I dislike it in others, is the procedural generation push. Right.
Yeah, I mean, it's okay, but it's such a gimmicky thing. I don't know. I actually don't think there's good things about that. Especially a lot of them are competitive games.
Yeah, the procedural generation is the natural developer response to the race to the bottom pricing. It's, well, if you're only going to pay $3 for this game, why on earth am I going to spend 200 hours of my life painfully, meticulously detailing levels that you aren't even going to pay me to do? I'll let the computer do it.
Right.
So I mean, it makes sense. It's just lazy game design. It's, you really don't care that much. Basically.
I think, I feel like I think that is definitely a way to look at it. I think a lot of times, I think procedural generation, the more often, the answer I normally hear when I ask like, hey, what are your thoughts on procedural generation? Why do you like it or why do you dislike it? And the reason why I hear a lot of people like it is because as a developer, you don't get bored of your own game. Like you are still able to be surprised, and that's something that if you are doing these more handcrafted, more curated experiences, it doesn't necessarily happen. Now, however, I would say
I think if they were actually trying, they could make a game that wouldn't bore them. I mean, that's.
Well, I think it's a personality type, right?
There's other ways to do that. I mean, Spelunky is a really great example, because it's the roguelike, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, if Spelunky had like set level design and the characters were randomized, you'd still have like all that stuff. But now you'd be able to like speed run in a way that like is a lot more specific. So I mean, it's hard to say if the game would be better or worse like that. But for me, it's more of a game mode and less of a, it's more of a game mode, I guess, than a game.
Right.
I think the for me, procedurally generated levels is kind of like it's like dubstep. It is really, really easy to make dubstep.
Yeah.
It is really hard to make good dubstep.
Right.
And you hear it. Like when you hear a Knife Party track, you're like, this is an amazing dubstep track. It's really great. But there's just so much of it. It's really easy to just like, take a bunch of things and throw them together and throw in some modem sounds and I have a dubstep song, yay! But on the other end of it, if you actually take the time to go through and make your own synths and really get into the nitty-gritty of the programming and automation, you can make a really good track. And I think the same thing is true with procedural generation. Like I've seen some demos from colleagues.
You can get to 70% really quick with procedural generation.
And I've seen some procedurals from colleagues that are fucking amazing, and I would love to play that game. And then I asked them about it. I was like, oh yeah, well I've only been working on the AI for this for 2.5 years, so it's kind of a handoff there.
Yeah, I guess this is kind of what you want to focus on, and I think that's probably that's like an omission that small teams have to make, right? Like, I mean, obviously you guys are we're 5 now, back down to 2, so you guys definitely have to control the size of the things that you create. And so if you're going to be doing levels and you're going to make 1,000 levels and then get wasted one night testing them all, like that's your choice. That's like how you decide to do it. And I think
mean, it sucks, dude. I understand. I understand not wanting to do it, and a lot of people, I guess, they think about games as like this really fun thing to do and blah blah blah. It's not fun. Like I don't understand. Like the first 25% is really really fun. The rest of the 75% of actually like finishing, completing, making the game is hard work. It's really hard work. And I understand like wanting to make a game that's like fun for you, and it's great. But I think that also you're really trying to make the game fun for somebody else. You're not trying to make it fun for you.
I think that's really good. There's a Frank Zappa quote like art without the audience in mind is just artist masturbation. Is I think is the quote.
That's kind of how I think about it. I mean, these procedurally generated games are games for programmers. Like, they really are. It's game developers selling to other game developers. And, I mean, you see that. Everyone I know who's a game developer loves Spelunky. Everyone I know who hates Spelunky is not a game developer. It's like almost a one-to-one there.
It's one of those things where, like, the game design is supposed to be invisible. It's just like the audio. If you are walking around in Battlefield going like, man, the dynamic audio that I'm experiencing right now is really good, they did a bad job. You're not supposed to notice it. And the game design is exactly the same way. When you're walking around in like a Spelunky or another procedural roguelike, and you're like, man, it's really cool how they got the procedural generation. They've already fucked up. Because now you're paying attention to the blue screen instead of the actor. And I think that's a lot of it. Is just you need, like we were talking about before, you need to erase all the seams, and yeah, it's hard to erase the seams when you don't have control over them. So like I said, like I think
it's like anything; it can be done well, but I don't know.
I think it's great for game jams.
And maybe we'll make our next game procedural. Procedural auditorium duet. How's that sound?
We'll interview you again next year when it comes out. I'm just gonna play you that loop. You're just like, fuck procedural generation.
I'm gonna do it right now, actually, just because we're talking about it. I am gonna make
exactly 12 months. Procedural generation is the greatest thing that has ever happened, and everyone should be doing it.
I'm gonna do it. Don't worry. I have no problem being a hypocrite. I'm really okay with it. I don't have that much pride in myself. I'll let it go.
Well, I think that, I mean, honestly, I think also that is also a very important. Because the thing is, I feel like there's a lot of engineers, right? And I think there are many engineers that are trying to be creators and trying to be makers, and there's not enough people who are actually in the scene that are looking at it from a maker's perspective, and not so much as like a designer or an engineer or things like that. And what you just said right there is that you're not too proud, right? You're able to admit that, yeah, this is garbage, or you're not above any sort of thing or any sort of trope or any sort of like gimmicky mechanic, because the thing is, there is something to learn there. There's something to be gained, and I think people who like to make things.
Dude, I'm wrong like 90% of the time.
Right.
I'm really okay with that. I kind of like it. It's fun.
There's a thing that we talk about here. We tell it to everyone that works with us. We tell it to every intern that comes in, is that ideas are worthless. Ideas are completely worthless. The only thing that matters is execution.
Right.
So, we can talk about we can debate the merits of procedural generated content. We can debate the merits of, AAA games or whatever you want. At the end of the day, all that matters is, did you deliver? Did you, polish the content? Did you put all of the legwork in to make the thing that you delivered the best it can be? Because if you did, then I'll shut up. And it doesn't really matter what I think if what you made is undeniably good.
Yeah, I mean, don't give me 3 guns in a game that don't have a recoil animation. Give me 1 gun that has an awesome recoil animation. I'm happier. That's what I want to see. I want it to be finished. Like, if you're going to only add one thing, like, finish it from every different angle. Even if people aren't going to see the thing from underneath, figure it out from underneath. Like,
right.
That's...
No. See, the thing is, the way you're speaking my language completely, because my background, it comes from fine art, and that's what you're trained to do. You're trained to, it's just we finish, even where people aren't going to see things, you still polish it to all high hell, because that's what craft is. The craft is making sure that things are seamless, things are unified, things are together wholly. Like, there's no odd parts out. Like, people don't look at it and go, huh, that's weird that's there. I feel like it should be over there, because if you did that, then you didn't do it right.
Yeah, when I do designs and stuff, what I'll do is I take screenshots and I set it as my desktop background, which is like, it's really annoying because I never really make anything that's 100%. And what I do is I'll stare at it for like a week or something, until the point that I get like so frustrated by that one detail enough that I go in and fix whatever the detail is. Mm-hmm. And I do that with so many things, from our games to like logo designs to websites. And I'll just leave them on my background, so like I'm looking at them even when I'm not looking at them, so that subconsciously, if something's wrong, I can go back and fix it.
I do the same thing with all of our music. Every time I leave here, I bounce it to Dropbox, and on the walk home, I'm listening to it. And when I come back in the morning, I'm listening to it. I'm just always listening to it. And it's really easy to say, this part is really fucking annoying and I need to change it once you've listened to it 150,000 times.
Yeah, I mean, we have another studio now. It's a really small prototyping studio that we made with one of our older members, called Deep Dark Hole, and I just did the logo design, I guess, last week. And I made a bunch of logos. We had the idea, and the idea of the company is that we've fallen into this deep dark hole. We're just doing games that are like really ridiculous and off the wall. One of them is actually an indie game, which is really cool.
Which one?
It's called Elbow Room. We're actually, Andre's right next to us right now working on it, and
I'm sure we'll help him at some point.
Yeah, we're gonna eventually help him. That is our plan. But yeah, it was funny like making the logo, because we had this like Juon grudge, like The Room kind of vibe that we wanted to get across. It was kind of like an evil, like scary, like Exodus that we were doing.
Very not Cipher Prime.
Yeah, and I made the logo, and like the logo was like all black, and it was kind of like bleeding text, and I did everything like by hand. It was like drawn out, and it looked awesome. And I came in and looked at it next day, and I was like, Jesus Christ, it looks like I killed like 9 million children. Like, I have to change this. And, I think that next day perspective is pretty important, and I don't know that many people do that anymore. I think a lot of people are just like,
well, how do you get the distance, right?
Like, thank God it's done. And then,
right. I think the question is, how do you get the distance? How do you, when you're a single person or when you're a team of 2 people working on a project for 2 years, how do you maintain perspective?
So, I mean, I'm not sure if you know this or not, but I'm about to do a bicycle trip across America. So
Oh, that's awesome.
That happens on Tuesday. So like I actually get the distance, like physical distance. So I think that things like that are really important. I think for anybody who's creative, I think just changing your environment a lot is really, really, really key, because when you change your environment, just kind of the pathways in your brain that start firing off in a slightly different order. Even though it's the exact same content, you just start looking at things a little differently. And for me, getting distance from a project is actually physically getting distance. Like I'll jump on my motorcycle and go across America. Like, Dain will go and jump off roofs or something. Like,
what do you do, Dain?
Last year for my I needed to get away and get distance. I went to Morocco and trained with a parkour crew for a week.
What? That's awesome.
Again,
That's
distance.
awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, so he has like pictures of him jumping from rooftop to rooftop, which is really cool. So like for us, we actually, we live a really modest lifestyle. We don't spend a lot of money, and then we try to take off 3 months a year, where we still work for those 3 months, but we don't work on a set schedule for those 3 months.
It's almost like a sabbatical.
It's exactly a sabbatical.
No, we actually call it a sabbatical. It is in every way a sabbatical. So, I'll be working on the level design for Duet while I'm on this bicycle trip. And Dain will he's recording a new album because he's been wanting to learn and do some stuff and work with some folks. So for us, it's like we're still going to be working on our crafts, but we're going to be doing it separately and on our own time, the way we want to do it. And then we'll come back together after those 3 months and then finish off Duet.
There was an article that Ben Kuchera wrote recently for Polygon, I think, and he got a lot of flack for where he was saying, as a games journalist, like this is his job, games journalism. Games are not the most important thing in his life. And I think that sentiment is extremely important to keep in mind that if you're treating games as your craft and you're trying to pour yourself into it, you need to refill that vessel with things that aren't games. Yeah. Otherwise, you're just going to keep rehashing the same things over and over and over again.
It becomes incestuous at a point, right?
Yeah. If all you do is spend 20 hours a week playing shooters, and then you go to make a shooter, you're going to make a shooter exactly like the ones you've been spending 20 hours a week playing.
Yeah, I mean, my girlfriend was said something to me like a couple months ago, and she's like, "Yeah, games are your life," and I was like really offended by that. I was like, "No, they're not. They're not my fucking life." Like,
no, I think it's. I mean,
I got a Quake 3 tattoo on my right arm, but like, I spend like, Dain and I both spend an immense amount of time training and working out. We spend a lot of time like just being physically active and doing things. And like, I'm like a serviceable carny. Like I study juggling and circus arts like incessantly. For me, like that's I guess this thing that I really, really love. And I really love art. And games are actually like the third thing on the list. For me, games are just this way that I can put all these things together. And I think that's important. I think it can't be number one.
Right. Well, you guys are looking at it as a medium, right? It's just instead of a canvas,
It's exactly that.
That's exactly
like,
it. It's just a medium for us to work.
If you were an author working on a book, obviously people wouldn't take you seriously as an author if you never read. So I'm not saying don't play games, but they also wouldn't take you seriously as an author if you never left the house. So you need, if you're going to create something where you're telling people about experiences, you need to have experiences. If you're not experiencing things, you have no right to say anything.
Yeah, I just want to be an entertainer, I guess, at the end of the day. And that's kind of when I think of as making games, this is this way to be an entertainer and kind of entertain people from a distance. And I kind of feel like if I'm not having fun and I'm not being entertained and I'm not like genuinely an interesting individual, how can I ever expect to entertain somebody? Like, to me, it just seems silly. If I'm not happy and fun, how can I bring happy and fun to somebody else? So I think that's a part of just growing and being better at this craft. It's kind of like, I think you got to get away. You have to explore.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. It's like I think it's just maybe it's a PA thing. We all just get it.
Yeah, no, I feel like we get a lot of shit for it. We just put out the mailing lists, for the website, and Dain and I were debating should I tell people that I'm doing this bike trip? Because my girlfriend's going to be documenting the whole thing, and 2 other game developers are coming with us, so it's 4 of us.
NerdsAcrossAmerica.com.
And it's NerdsAcrossAmerica.com.
Are you guys going to make it to San Francisco or Oakland? Where are you guys going?
Yeah, so we're going all the way down to Florida. We're going to do the Keys, and then we're going to go across to California. and I think Greg's going to continue on. He's going to go up to Indie House, and we're going to. I think Savannah and I are going to kind of stay on the West Coast. Maybe it depends. We might come back here. It really depends on.
Remember that thing earlier we said about just kind of making it up as you go along.
Applies to all things.
Yeah,
applies to all things.
A lot of what Sav and I do revolves around how well development of Auditorium goes. It was going really bad for the first year, and we were supposed to have the game done in 6 months, and now it's like 2 years later. And we completely changed what we were doing after like a year and a half, and now like the game is doing really well. So if development keeps on, at the pace that it's going, I think probably stay out there, hang out, come back a little bit later. If not, fly back to Philadelphia and work on the game. So I think that depends really. But
yeah, I guess that bears worth mentioning is that for you guys, I mean, obviously you guys like to get out, and I think that's also super important for everyone to have an escape from their work or a creative outlet just to go somewhere else to just get experiences like you're describing. But what is your typical dev cycle? I mean, you guys seem to pump things out relatively quickly. Now, things obviously sometimes take time, but you guys plan, is it usually like 6 month, 1 year dev cycles that you try to hit for, or?
We try to hit 3 months. Like, all of our games start off as we're going to make the game in a week. That's just how they all start.
Let's rephrase that. Everything we do
starts
off, we'll knock it out in a week. Not a big deal.
But, we're idiots. So, like, what ends up inevitably happening is our dev cycle is 3 to 6 months. Auditorium is really strange because the things have happened, like business things have happened for Auditorium. We had a Kickstarter, and we were working on Splice, and then Splice launched, and we really thought that Splice was going to tank. Like, we did not have a lot of faith in Splice, because, like the thing you were talking about earlier, like, you're working on a game, you're looking at the same thing, you start to get really bored. So we were really bored of the game when we launched it, and we actually thought that it was a really, really terrible game. And then, to date, Splice has won more awards than any of our games. It's like, it was in PAX 10, it got all sorts of finalists in IndieCade, it got a lot of awards. And really big awards.
Well, it's a beautiful game. It is really good.
Yeah, but we were so blind to that, and we had no idea that was going to happen. So for us, it was like, cool, Splice is done. Just push the damn thing out the door. We're going to work on Auditorium, and that's not what happened. We spent a year supporting Splice, and then we started doing stuff with Sony, and we did a port for PS3 and PS4.
Porting for PS3 and PS4,
and then,
porting to iPad, all of these.
Yeah, and then
things.
Stuff kind of started happening with that, where it still hasn't launched yet, and. So all this stuff sort of happened, and we kind of had to, we had to look at it and be like, well, do we run a company or do we finish this game? So we ended up really not being able to work on Auditorium because we had to pursue, we finally had a game that was making us some money, and, at the end of the day, eating is really important. So we're like, okay, well, I guess we're going to keep working on Splice now while it's paying us. And we did a lot of, side projects for Auditorium along the way. And I guess Splice took a really long time. We were working on Intake kind of as a filler to kind of get up to speed with things we could do in Unity for Auditorium.
Yeah, we had brought on a new lead developer at the time, and he needed to get up to speed in Unity. So, Will had this idea for a game ages ago that would eventually turn into Intake. And, as our team exercise grew, people started taking notice and saying, like, oh, that's a really great game. You should probably sell that.
Yeah, so we got to 90% on it, and we're like, fuck, we should finish this game. And instead of it taking the month that we thought it was going to take, it took 3 months.
Yeah, that last 10% is always a killer.
Yeah, and so now it's been a year and a half, and we haven't worked on Auditorium, and we're like, are you fucking kidding me? And then, Kickstarter backers are furious because it's like, you've launched 2 other games. It wasn't on purpose, guys. We were really just trying to figure out how to survive here, I know you guys really want this game, but stop sending the hate mail because all we're really trying to do is make cool things for you. And it's not like we make a lot of money doing this, so it'd be cool if you chill it out.
Please stop.
Chill.
Please.
I mean, we get so much hate mail. I've told you about it before. It's just really, it's frustrating to wake up every day and do that. But I think finally, once those waters cleared and the intake got away and Splice got away, we sat down working on Auditorium and we got super inspired by it again. And now we're it looks awesome. The game is just amazing. We have a full single player now, And we're just trying to figure out exactly how this multiplayer stuff is going to work. And I think once we figure that out, we're in a good position. But it could be a long time, and it's strange because normally a game never takes more than 6 months. So
we've come back around, and we started approaching it exactly the same way we approached the first auditorium, where we're trying things and trying new things and saying, well, does this fit? Great. Does it not fit? Throw it out. And we're letting, I think we spent a good amount of time trying to force Auditorium Duet to be something that it didn't want to be. And now we've come back around. We're listening to our old advice for ourselves and letting the game evolve into what it's going to be.
Yeah.
Do you know what some of the things were like that? Like, just so maybe as a good concrete example of like something that you were trying to make it be that it just wasn't, and that you had to be like, nah, this isn't going to do it.
So we wanted to do multiplayer, right? So
Right.
The very first thing was we built a proxy server and the socket server and did everything so we could do matchmaking. And we went about doing that, and the problem is it's kind of a pain in the ass. Like, Unity doesn't really want to let you use two versions of Unity running at the same time. So you have to, like, hack it through the console to get two versions of Unity up, and then you have
to have two machines running at the same time.
Or you have to have two machines running at the same time. So now you're using two computers just to test a game. And so we did all this shit before we even had a game, right? So, like, why are we doing this? And we didn't even think about, like, local multiplayer. In our heads, it was just like, we're going to do a multiplayer online game. Because I guess that's kind of what we thought.
That's what we thought it had to be based on.
So dumb that was like, it was just an ignorant way of looking at it. And, you know, we played a lot of Towerfall. And after playing Towerfall for, like, a year and a half, we were like, wait a second. Why are we not just making this a local co-op game? This is a way better local co-op game. It's way easier to make the game this way. We don't have to go through any of this stuff and all these technical hurdles that we don't know how to solve. So we threw everything out, literally everything. Everything we had made to that day. And it is now no longer a multiplayer online game. It is a co-op local multiplayer game.
Right. Gotta kill your babies, right?
Yeah. So we slaughtered this baby. So there goes.
Literally, no code was saved from that first
Not a
draft.
single thing. So that was a year and a half. A year and a half development that we had to throw out, and
it's better for it.
Yeah,
it's
and then
we
started doing the multiplayer again, and then we're like, what the fuck? Why are we doing this? Like, we don't really know what the new things are going to happen in this game, and we have all this processing power. Let's just go back to the basics, and then the basics are playing with music and light. How do you play with music and light? And so we started doing a bunch of prototypes with playing with music and light, and that shit's really fun. And so we just made the single player again, and it's awesome, you know?
And even before that, before we started getting into the campaign, we built an editor that was fun to use. And so now
that's even smarter, right? Because now you have the tools, right? Yeah.
Well, yeah, I'm building the game in the game right now. And the demo that we send out to people right now when they want to see it is we call it
the designer
preview. You can be playing a level, and at any point in time, you can hit start, and you can be editing that level that you're playing. So it's just like, just fuck around, have some fun. Like,
yeah,
it's really not that important finishing Auditorium at all. What's important is that you have a really good time playing it. You get in there, and you kind of like into this. We really want to put you into this like mellow vibe state, and we want you to experience some fun music with some really fun light. So for us, it's not even important that you beat the game. And now the game has this level belt editor like so intertwined with the game that half the time we're saying to you, like, you could beat this level, or you could hit the start button and you could just throw light everywhere.
Yeah.
It's whatever you want to do, man. Maybe you don't need to beat the game. And I think just that in itself has been a lot more fun for us.
That's awesome. Well, it seems like you guys are looking forward to an awesome sabbatical.
Yeah, and I think we need it. We're really burnt out.
It's been a rough year.
It's been a really rough year. Having to downsize from 5 people to 2 people was like really it was a really, really sad thing for us, and a lot of it was just really poor business decisions on our part, and it's kind of like saying goodbye to your best friends, and that just sucks.
Right.
So we've had to go through all of that. The whole Kickstarter thing, we probably never should have done Kickstarter in the first place. I think if we hadn't have done Kickstarter, a lot of the business decisions we made, we wouldn't have made. So we would have been in a much better space.
Because you're like on a contact high from like a successful Kickstarter. It's like, yeah, we could do anything.
Well, because we needed intake because we needed to make money, and the game was at 90%. But we didn't want to tell people the game existed because we didn't want them to get angry at us for working on intake instead of auditorium duet. So when the game launched, not a lot of people knew about the game because we hadn't been talking about it. And so the game didn't do anywhere nearly as well as any of our other games because we just simply didn't tell people it existed. To this day, I don't think that many people know that intake exists. Meanwhile, if you go on Steam and you look at the user ratings, it's got 100% user rating. Like, people love this game.
It's a good game. Again, I mean, I know I've said this about other games. I know I said this on a stage in front of a lot of people, but no, you guys make really good games. Like,
thank you. Thanks, man.
I really do mean it. And I meant what I said earlier, that the games that you guys do create, they feel very well realized. And that's what, for me personally, when I play games, and unfortunately I have to play a lot of games these days. I can't just play the ones that I like, but the ones that really strike me are the ones that feel very like there's no fat. It's a complete idea, and just being able to say like, oh, this is a complete idea. That doesn't sound like a lot, but for people who play a lot of games, I'm sure you guys, when you hear that phrase, it makes a lot of sense. Cause
I think it makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
So many things, so many times, just games just have all this shit, all this stuff happening. Like just because Assassin's Creed has all of the systems does not make it a better game.
Yeah, I mean, you only need one system that works well, not 30 systems that work okay.
Right. I don't need crafting. I don't need naval battles. I don't need hidden stealth kills. I don't need parkour. I need like one of those things just really executed really well.
There was one sequence. I was playing the new I guess the newish Tomb Raider, the most recent one, and there was one sequence where I don't know if you played.
Yeah, I played it. Yeah.
But it's where, you're in the woods at night and there's a campsite and there's all of these dudes just strewn out, and it just becomes a stealth game where you have to run around and take out all these dudes without alerting anyone. And that was the best sequence. I would have played 4 hours of just that.
Yeah.
And no quick time events. Like, that would have been great.
Right, exactly. No, and that's why I think that's what I love typically about indie games, is that since they don't have the budgets balloon so large, that typically that most designers are savvy enough to be like, okay, well, since we can't do everything, let's pick like one, maybe two things, and let's just do those things really well.
It does bother me sometimes because I play these AAA games and they could be so much better than they are if they were less. Like Far Cry. I fucking love Far Cry, and it's not because I play the single-player campaign. Like, I accidentally beat Far Cry, but it wasn't on purpose. Like, what I really like about Far Cry is it's this, like, awesome hunting game. And I don't know why it doesn't, like, what the fuck? Like, why are you making this story campaign-driven game when you have this open-world engine that's just so unbelievably amazing at doing this thing? And why can't I just make my own levels? Like, if you turn Far Cry into Gary's mod, like,
game
holy
over.
Shit. Like,
meanwhile...
There would be no other game that you ever need to play. Like, I would just play the shit out of that for the rest of my life.
And meanwhile, with the exact same engine... If you want to do the story-driven thing, Blood Dragon was fucking great because they decided, let's just make a really balls-to-the-wall 1980s action movie with Michael Biehn and allow you to do that. And so, they focused on that idea.
It takes all of the things so seriously that it shouldn't take seriously, and then all of the things that it should take seriously, like its open-world environment, they just, like, for whatever reason, don't realize is the best part of the game. But anyone who's ever played the game, like, spends way more time going from point A to point B and just having a lot of fun.
Well, yeah, I think you're hitting it like perfectly. Like, that's why like Just Cause 2, right? When all of a sudden there's like these dudes like, hey, we're gonna make a multiplayer. The devs are like, yes, like that's you guys are doing something awesome. What do you need from us?
Yeah, I mean that's great. Like, that's what I want to see. But unfortunately, like, all these AAA games, like, most of them are just doing too much and not doing anything really, really amazing.
Yeah. Well, now we're going to end out on a bummer, so...
That's okay. I did play... I played the new Far Cry, and they have, like, arena battles. Oh, man, it's fucking good. It's like they finally learned something from Blood Dragon. They definitely learned something.
Blood Dragon's really good.
You may notice... you may have noticed that, despite the fact that we make very... atmospheric, calm, pleasing, family-friendly games. We play very violent games. we play a lot of Counter-Strike, for instance.
A lot of TF2, from what I hear. I've been told.
A lot of TF2.
Yeah, we've got a trophy on our mantle. It's no big deal. Like we might be okay at that game. We probably played it once or twice.
Yeah.
Way too many hours spent playing that dumb game with fucking hats.
Don't worry.
Why don't they just have a hat designer game? Like they could that would be a really good idea if they ripped the hats out of TF2 and just made a hat designer game. Boom! I guarantee bestseller.
Yeah.
I don't know though.
I'm making Hat Designer 34.
TF2 is another example of this sort of creep. Like I
liked. We used to play it. We stopped playing it. It got too bloated.
I had to stop playing it. Like once it went free to play, like I don't know. I stopped playing it for a while, and then I went back into it maybe a week ago, and there's people around like casting spells and doing all of this stuff. Like, what? Where's the game? The game I used to play doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah, no, the game we used to play is fucking dead, and it was so good. The original Team Fortress.
The original Team Fortress was yeah. I was gonna say those ones were good.
The original Team Fortress in Quake, not classic, because that was just way to murder a good game. That game, like you talk about a realized game, like that was so good, and it knew it was. It was goofy too, and it knew it was goofy.
I miss Twitch shooters. I miss like Unreal, like old school Unreal, like double jumping, shooting off the plasma orb and like hitting it to get explosions.
I have to rant about this all the time because I'm such a shooter fan. I miss those games. Like I've only ever wanted to make a first person shooter in my entire life, and for some reason I've like spent a lot of time just being like I can't make one because I don't have the skills or whatever.
Right.
And after Auditorium, I'm making a first person shooter. Like I don't know who's with me, but I'm doing it. I don't fucking care. I don't care if I have to get, a job at Home Depot or something. Like, I am making a first-person shooter. And it's going to be old school, it's going to be arcadey, and it's going to be fun. And it's not going to be this bullshit like, oh, I've got a really realistic gun. No, you don't. You have a laser beam attached to your fucking forehead and you're shooting sharks. Like,
everything's railguns all the time.
Yeah, it should just be railguns and rocket launchers and shotguns. Like
that's it. That's all you need.
That is all you need.
It's quite literally all you need is railguns, rocket launchers, and
shotguns. That's exactly what you need.
I might just call the game that.
I think you should call the game that.
Yeah,
I don't know what else you would call it at this point.
I will put in a petition for dual wield on all of those, but
yeah, dual wielding all of them is really important. Shotgun, railgun, really important.
Now we're getting to Mech Warrior territory, but I don't know about that.
That was always my favorite thing. Where like I have a pistol and I shoot you, and then you drop your pistol, and then I pick up your pistol, and now I have two pistols. That's was
awesome. Like you have two hands, you can definitely carry two guns.
You should make it then when the third person kills you with the two pistol, he picks up all three. He gets a third arm.
I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
No,
that's how a game should be. But we only have two arms, so you're only allowed to have two guns.
No, fuck that.
Maybe you can tape one of the guns to the other gun. And now you have a double barrel pistol.
Yeah, this bullshit realism stuff is really pissing me off. Like, you're making fucking video games, guys. Like, do whatever you want. Like, you can make anything. You don't have to make a platformer. You don't have to make an FPS where everyone has two arms.
You don't have to make War Simulator 75.
Right. But I get frustrated.
Oh, really? You don't? Tell me how you really feel.
Oh, man, it really sucks when you're trying to find a cool new game to play, and you're like, damn it, it's just another platformer.
Yeah. All right, guys. Well, we're wrapping up here, but where do you guys want to point everyone? You have a brand new, shiny, gorgeous website, so that's one place. Anywhere else?
Yeah, CipherPrime.com is the new one. If anyone wants to see nerds across America, there's that. If you want to follow any of that, and then Dain's site, DainSaint.com. He's got his new album that'll be coming out, I think, in like 2 months, and that's where all his music drops. So if you're a big music fan, you can go there. And then all of my art is at willstall.com. So, any of that stuff, if people are interested.
And if you feel like hearing random ranting, you can follow Twitters at Dain Saint, at Will Stall. We try to keep it simple.
And you also, if they're in Pittsburgh, not Pittsburgh, if you're in the Philly area, where you guys also do Dev Night, Game Night stuff?
Oh, yes. Yeah, so we have the thing called Philly Game Forge, which is our co-working space, and that can be, that's on 3rd and Chestnut. It's where we do Dev Night. So if you're a game studio in Philadelphia or you're moving here and you need space, we highly recommend you come here. We want all the game studios in Philadelphia under one roof, and so far we're doing that. So if you come to Philly, please come join us.
Yeah, check that out. PhillyDevNight.com.
PhillyDevNight.com is every Thursday. We have 50 to 70 people come by, play, talk, and make games.
We have monthly game jams. We have a Game of the Month club, Q&A, a few other things.
Yeah.
Oh, what's the game of the month?
So what we do is like it was Fracked this past month, so I don't know what the new one is. They're assigning a new one, but it's like a book club.
Yeah. No,
yeah.
we've always actually wanted to do a game club for the site. For Big Sushi, yeah.
Hey, if you guys want to do it, we'll stop picking our game and we'll just use your game and jump on your bandwagon.
Oh yeah,
we'll
Frack's a good one too. Do you guys didn't really care for it though? You guys weren't too hot on it?
No, I liked it. I wasn't. Games like Fracked and Trauma and like our games have to be played when you're in a certain mood.
Right.
And I think some of them, like, there should be an artistic statement when you play an artistic game that says, like, this game is designed for you when you're in this mood. Like, and I don't mean this to be a jerk, but, like, one game played at a different time of your life can be completely, like, awe-inspiring.
No, I totally understand that.
Fracked is not a game to play if you're, like, tweaking really hard on five hours of sleep and 20 cups of coffee. Like, it's not that game.
So I think that for me personally, like, it being in the book club was kind of a problem because it said that I had to play this game this month, and I'm about to leave, and we have all these other projects going on, and I'm trying to wrap up all these projects before this happens.
Yeah. So
I've really been only sleeping 3 or 4 hours a night, and I really just truly couldn't appreciate the game. And I feel bad because I screwed up my own first look of the game. So if I even go back and play it again, I'm going to be like tarnished by that first play that I had.
That's a really great point, though. I mean, I find myself a lot of times like I haven't played through either of the new Telltale adventure games just because I haven't been in the mindset. Like I just haven't been like I don't want to just like I know these are good. I know that I'm going to enjoy them, but I'm not in the mindset to sit down for like an hour or 2 hours and like. Think about really character development, and take it in. Yeah,
fair, man. You're like not always in the mood for a drama. Sometimes you need to watch a comedy, and like that's
exactly
the same thing for games.
The movies,
especially games that are like any kind of artistic game. I think even merits that even more.
Yeah, like I go through this thing because when I was before I was super busy with all this work. I used to be like 100%er when it came to achievements, just for like I've always been a completionist whenever I played any games, and so achievements have like just exacerbated that problem, my problem with completing games. And so I would be that guy where I'd like Burnout Paradise, I'd beat that game, I'd get all the cars, but then I would be when I'd get home from work at like 10 o'clock at night, I'd then sit on the couch as my wife was sleeping because she's a teacher, and I would sit there on the couch and just like look for all the signs and just like not really like caring if I found them all, but like I just wanted to like fill time and not like and actually be like engaged and not just like watching a film or watching TV. I wanted to actually like do something. And so like that's kind of like the state I'm in right now. So I've been playing a lot of like Destiny because it's just like I just pop it on and they give me this objective and it's not hard and I just go do it.
Yep. Yeah, and that's okay. I mean, I think you need both kind of games like that.
Yeah. But it's funny how you go through. It's how it's like the ebb and flow, right? Sometimes you want like something that's not really demanding at all, and then it's the game you want like a game that's like no, I want a game to like really challenge me. Like,
yep. I've
been trying to play Shovel Knight too. Like, this is like the opposite.
I love Shovel Knight.
No, I love it too, but like
Shovel Knight was our game of the month game 2 months ago.
It was Shovel Knight was our best received game of the Game Club.
Yeah.
Game like by far. It was the only game that nobody had anything bad to say about.
Yeah, no, and I really like it too. But like some of those later levels get a little bit more difficult with like the platforming, which rightfully so. Like that's what this game is for. But I'm just like I just don't want to deal with this right now.
Yeah, my only complaint I had with Shovel Knight was that the difficulty was in the platforming and not in the fighting.
Right.
And I love bouncing. I think that bouncing is like the coolest thing ever. The Goomba head stomp like. It's so much more exciting when you get 1, 2, or 3 of them. And all I wanted to do, I found out that I had a shovel and I could bounce, and I was really excited by that mechanic, and I felt like a lot of the difficulty was just getting from platform to platform, where later levels, all I wanted to do was kill things. That was like my only complaint, was that there wasn't more bouncing.
More murder.
More murder, basically.
Well, it's like the Mega Man, right? Mega Man was all about it was not just about the platform; it was also about all the enemy pattern memorization. So that was like.
But, it was definitely there. It definitely fulfilled on the Mega Man style of platform, but I think it just didn't learn the things from all the new platformers that have like these crazy enemies and stuff. But that said, I thought it was fucking brilliant. So.
Yeah. All right, guys. Well, cool. So I guess I'll have to email you guys to talk more about Game Club because I want in.
Sure.
I want in on that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we do it once a month. So.
Awesome. And thank you so much, guys, for taking the time to talk to us today, or me.
Yeah,
today.
absolutely. Thanks for having us. It was awesome.
Thanks a lot, man.
Yeah, we'll be in touch. We'll love to catch up with you guys when Duet it gets pushed out, when you guys actually launch everything on PS4, because that'll be exciting. This should be a lot of fun.
We'll talk to you in like 4 years.
Are you guys gonna go to GDC ever again, or are you guys done? Forget it. It's over.
I don't know. It's really expensive.
Yeah, the two events that I look forward to each year are GDC for business and Indiecade for pleasure.
Are you guys going to Indiecade?
Probably not.
We can't really afford it right now.
Yeah.
Andre will be at Indiecade if you're there, and you can play Elbow Room.
Yeah, I've actually got a show that weekend, so I'm stuck on this side.
And I'm going to be on a bicycle somewhere. So
Wait, is it a bicycle or is it a motorcycle?
I've done it in the past on a motorcycle by myself. This is on a bicycle.
That's awesome.
Yeah, with a group of people.
And you're doing the whole... How long is that going to take?
Oh, God. At least 3 months.
Phew. That's awesome.
I'm looking forward to one of them eating the other, so...
I don't know if you've met Greg Lobanoff, but he's a tiny little game developer, and I think we're going to kill him along the way.
Well, you're not supposed to admit the crime before it happens. Now there's evidence.
He's wearing headphones right now, so he can't even hear me, so it's fine.
All right. No one's going to listen to this show ever.
Yeah, well, you have to burn the podcast now. Burn it.
Yeah. Sorry. Shit. All this good talk for nothing. All right, guys. Thank you so much.
All right, have a good one.
Take care.
Bye.